Welcome. Put my glasses on. So we are in Bitachon, Shaar Bitachon, Gate of Trust, and we're going to be reading. This section is about dealing with loneliness. If you don't know what's going on, check out the introduction. But the holidays are coming up, and this is just pumping us full of some Mussar, some ethics, some practical ways for practical living. That will help us deal with some of these holiday things going on. It's a tough time for a lot of people, so let's just get into this Mussar. So today we're going to be focusing on loneliness, dealing with loneliness, and I'm reading Bitachon myself, but I haven't gotten to this section, so I'm interested in seeing what it's going to say. So it'll be my first time interacting with this information as well. But the section starts off with the proper attitude in social interactions. So the author now turns to discuss how a person is supposed to have Bitachon regarding matters in this category, that matters that affect a person's social interactions. However, the explanation regarding the proper Bitachon in the third category, which is where we are now, it is comprised of those matters that pertain to his wife, children, members of his household, relatives, friends, enemies, people whom he holds in high esteem, acquaintances, as well as superiors, subordinates from different classes of people. The proper way to rely on God regarding them is as I will relate. A person cannot escape from one of the following two scenarios. Either he will be estranged, living alone, or he will live amongst his family and close ones. Okay, so that we're going to look at the first one. Either he will be estranged, living alone. And excuse me if I pause, because remember this print is so tiny, it's like elvish, and I'm trying to link up the even finer notes at the bottom. So, dealing with loneliness. If he is estranged, and it's male centric, it's Jew on Jew. This is written for Jews by Jews, and it's going to be centered around a man. So if you're a female and you're whatever, just rock with it. It's the same point. Okay. So if he is estranged, living alone, then he should connect with God at the time of his loneliness. And he should rely on God in his state of estrangement. So the note on that is, so the author is speaking about emotional challenges that a person can feel from relationships, but it be it loneliness from being away or just not having family, or fear or anxiety from enemies. So this section is good for all. I love the Jewish people. Only Jewish people come up with some good stuff like this. So he should connect with God at the time of his loneliness, that he should rely on God in his state of estrangement. What does that mean? Since he's alone without friends or family, he's forced to rely on God to be his friend, who will help him in his time of need. In the days of old, the teacher, the Rosh Yeshiva, or the Gaon, the head of the school, the headmaster. In the days of old, this teacher was lonely, and his disciples were also lonely. The path of the Hasidut, which was established by Alter Rebbe. This is Chabad's version, so you're going to get some Alter Rebbe stuff in there. He brought about a divine innovation. The Rebbe is not alone, and the Hasidim are not alone. The Hasidic philosophy espoused by the Alter Rebbe teaches that everything is inherently connected through the oneness of God. Therefore, the teacher cannot remain aloof, nor can the student feel inferior, because they're both equally inherently divine. The bottom line, connect with God at moments of loneliness. Boom. Connect with Hashem in moments of loneliness. So in order to comfort himself, he should dwell on the fact that the soul is also estranged in this world, and that all the people of the world are considered as strangers in it. As the verse says in Leviticus 25:23, for you are strangers and temporary residents with me. Furthermore, he should comfort himself in the following manner. He should think to himself that even all those people who have close ones in this world will, in a short amount of time, revert to being strangers and alone, and neither a person's close one nor his child will be able to help him then. nor will they be able to connect with them. Interesting idea that not all the time are you always in somebody's face. There's gonna be times when you're by alone, by alone, when you're by yourself. So you should know how to deal with both situations. So the note here is the soul is also the part where it says the soul is also estranged in this world. The soul originates from and is part of God, and it comes down into the physical and materialistic world for a divine purpose. The soul's natural state and desire is to be connected to God, and it is therefore a stranger in this world. Now, considering that the primary and distinguishing quality of man is his soul, then each and every person is, in a certain and real sense, a stranger. The soul of man is a fire of God. That's in Proverbs 20:27. Just as a flame is always drawn upwards, having an innate desire to separate from the wick and ascend upwards, so too the soul of man has a desire to leave the body and reunite in its root and source, the living life, God. Blessed be He. The soul is incarcerated in a physical body. Reflect on the following. I have a soul that is literally a part of God, and my actions affect this piece of God within me, my actions. Therefore, I need to have mercy on God, who is in exile within my body, for the purpose that I should reunite this piece with its source through the study of Torah and fulfillment of the commandments that He gave. Now, consider how happy you must be that you have been given this opportunity, that is your task in this world, to remove your soul from this exile and reunite it with God. For an analogy, imagine that being a catalyst behind a prince who has been kidnapped and has been rotting in jail to be reunited with his father, the king. So too should you be happy with your lot. That's also from Proverbs? Or is it? No. It's from Likutei Amarim. Okay, so the bottom line of this section is you have been given this opportunity to reunite your soul with God. Use this time of loneliness to connect with God. You got an opportunity to reunite yourself with God. You are not alone. Okay, all the people of this world are considered strangers. Now for this part, it says, the note is, all inhabitants of the world, even those who consider themselves of great lineage, are essentially described as strangers. Our sages of the Talmud explained why the creation of man differed from the creation of other species, and why, amongst other things, man was created as a single individual, unlike other living creatures created in pairs. One of the reasons our sages declare is that it was God's design that the human race, all humans everywhere and at all times, should know that each and all descend from the one and same single progenitor, a fully developed human being created in the image of God, so that no human being could claim superior ancestral origin. Hence, he would also find it easier to cultivate a real feeling of kinship in all interhuman relationship, except from where's the rest of that note? Except from I don't know where the note went. That's funny. Oh, I see. That was the end of the sentence. It would be easier to cultivate a real feeling of kinship in all interhuman relationships. That was it, the end. So eventually everyone dies, and if he lives a long time, then he will outlive his family members and find himself alone. Alternatively, he could die first. Any advantages that a person gains from having family who can help him and provide solace are only temporary. After this, he should think about the fact that due to living alone, the weight of those people's loads, responsibilities, and needs has been removed from him. He should consider this removal to be one of the kindnesses of the Creator to him, for he is a person who pursues worldly matters. For if he is a person who pursues worldly matters and its needs, his work will be much less of a strain on him if he does not have a wife and children. It emerges that the lack of a wife and children is a cause for his rest and for his own good. If he is a person who seeks the matter of the world to come, spiritual matters, then his mind will, without a doubt, be more unoccupied and free to pursue these matters when he's alone. than if he had a family with which he busied himself. Are you going to be able to study, figure out how he designed the world, what we're supposed to do? If you're running around with your family and kids, you're going to have less time to do that. This is why the ascetics would flee from their relatives and houses to the mountains so that they could free their hearts and minds to focus on the service of God. Similarly, the prophets at the time of prophecy would leave their places of residence and seclude themselves so they could free their minds to ponder fulfilling the obligations imposed on them by the Creator. Just taking our time here. Okay, let's go back and read the notes. So the bottom line is that going back to the common ancestral lineage, no human being could claim superior ancestral origin. Now, going back to ascetics, yeah, I hope I'm saying that right. Those Stoic people, they would flee from their relatives and houses to the mountains so that they could free their hearts and minds to focus on the service of God. Before the soul comes down into this world, it is in a state of ecstasy because its natural place is to savor the bliss of spirituality. Subsequently, it comes down into the world for the purpose of elevating the physical world to a divine state. That's funny because this one talked different from this one. This one's more, I think on the next one, I might read this one. Because this one focuses, you'll see the difference. This one has more like stories of things that happen to people, so you can kind of get examples. And this one really keeps you focused on the spiritual aspect. So I'll go back and forth and read these two versions so you can have different views. The purpose of this, subsequently, your soul comes into this world for the purpose of elevating the physical world to a divine state. This purpose is fulfilled through the soul's being clothed in a physical body with materialistic tendencies. Despite these challenges, the soul refines and elevates the body and physical world through Torah and the commandments, performing the commandments, mitzvot. Before a person marries, before he has the element of challenge that a spouse and marriage represent, he's compared to the soul in the exalted divine state before it has the worldly challenges. And at this time, there is this peacefulness that is represented in having time to connect and be one with God. This does not eliminate the fact that there is a divine mission in being married and in serving God within the struggle of life. Ultimately, it's not good that man be alone. Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, because that is not the purpose of creation. Rather, the purpose is I will make a counterpart to him that people marry and live together. And through this challenge, the person and the soul will be raised to a much higher level than it was before creation. We get that from the Torah or Daf 5b. The bottom line is through a challenge, a person is raised to a higher level. Historically, we find a group of Jews who requested this ascetic lifestyle. The Torah tells us that the tribes of Gad and Reuben were asked to remain in the Transjordan, where they would have ample. They asked to remain there, where they would have ample land to tend their flocks and not settle in the land of Israel. That's in Numbers chapter 32. And the Hasidic teachings, the teachings of the Chabad, explain their reluctance to enter in the land of Israel, saying because the challenges they would have to face there in their divine service, they didn't want to do all that. In the desert, the Jewish people had their material needs provided for: manna from heaven, water from the well of Miriam, protection from the elements through the clouds of glory, and etc. Entering the land of Israel would mean having to plow and sow and etc. and work for their livelihood. And the tribes of Gad and Reuben asked Moshe to spare them this challenge. They said, look, let us live an ascetic lifestyle. Let us live in an area where it's easy to pasture, a place where we'll be in the fields and nothing will disturb us from serving God. Ultimately, the Torah tells us that Moshe acquiesced, okay? Moreover, there are a few interesting points to explore here. Number one, this was an exemption for only 2 tribes plus the half tribe of Manasseh. whereas the majority were commanded to enter in the land of Israel. And the reason is the purpose of creation is to make a dwelling place for God in the lowest of worlds, the world of the Asiyah. To accomplish that, a Jew must confront the basest challenges of creation, and he must find God and serve him in that space. Therefore, it is not enough to remain in the desert and serve God there, or to even remain in a place of pasture and serve God there. Rather, a person must go through the land where there's a struggle and a challenge and serve God in that setting. Therefore, most of the Jews were commanded to enter Israel. Number 2, even these tribes were only allowed to remain in the Transjordan after promising to their brothers in battle, to lead their brothers in battle to conquer the land of Israel. This gives us insight into why Moshe allowed them to remain. Clearly, it is understood that in order to accomplish a mission, there is a need for guidance by leaders who are immersed in the goal. So, 2, the mission of making a dwelling place for God in this lowest world, it needs guidance from Torah leaders and those who occupy themselves in the way of the world. So, you need guidance from Torah leaders, and that's what makes all these Mussar books awesome. It comes from Torah scholars, people that busy themselves in understanding how you understand how God's Hashkafa, all this stuff, how the world works through Torah. So that's why we read the commentaries, so we're not doing these things alone. Okay, let's see here. This was precisely the request of the tribes of Gad and Reuben. Let us remain in a land without challenges, a land where we can focus and connect to God. However, we will not distance ourselves from the mission of the Jewish people. We will lead them in their mission, and we will be a beacon, will be their beacon and shining light, and we will be their Torah guides and show them how to achieve their goal. Quick bottom line, accept guidance from Torah leaders and those who occupy themselves with the ways of God. In the words of the Talmud in Brachot 35b, Rabbi Yishmael opined that a person must contradict himself in the ways of the world. A person must conduct himself in the ways of the world. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, on the other hand, says, if a man grows in the season of plowing, sows in the seasons of sowing, harvests in the season of harvest, and winnows in the season of winnowing, what will become of the Torah? Rather, when a person follows the will of God, his work will be done by others. The Talmud concludes, many did as Rabbi Yishmael advocated and were successful, and many did as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and were not successful. So Yishmael said a person should conduct himself, and so Rabbi Yishmael, he opined, my opinion is, do like everybody else has to do, like plow, sow, The other one, Rabbi Bar Yochai, he said, nah, if you do all that, then you don't get a chance to study Torah. And the Talmud concludes both the students of both did the two different ways, and they both were successful. So, many did what Rabbi Yishmael said, do like the world does, and they were successful, and many did. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, they said, if you study Torah, don't worry about plowing, don't worry. That guy, his students were not successful. That is, when it comes to the predominant tasks of the Jewish people, they need to act in the way of the land, making a dwelling place for God in the lowest realm. And if many act in accordance with Rabbi Shimon's advice, they will not be successful, because that is the mission of the few, to lead the Jewish people in transforming the world into an abode for God with the vision of Torah. In our lives, we must have both of these attitudes. So the consensus is both are right. On the one hand, we must yearn for a time of seclusion when we are removed from all worldly affairs. It's a time to serve God and connect to Him through Torah and prayer. On the other hand, there's times when we must go into the world and bring the light of Torah into our worldly affairs, making a house for God. And if you remember in the beginning, we read, or maybe it was in the introduction, that the author is saying that you will find through your activities in the world, your Bitachon will grow. It's by doing things. Now, the question here is, what things are you doing? Okay, so bottom line is there is a time to connect with God through Torah and prayer, and there's a time when you must bring the light of Torah into the worldly matters, making it a home for God. Okay, so we got a couple examples here. An example of this is Elisha when Elijah came to anoint him as his successor. As you know from the story of Elijah, Eliyahu, and Elisha, about whom the verse states in 1 Kings 19:19, 12 yokes were before him, and he was with the 12th. This verse continues that Elijah or Eliyahu threw his cloak over Elijah, as a hint that Elisha too would wear the special cloak that only prophets would wear. And since Eliyahu subtly hinted to him that he would be a prophet, Elisha understood him and said in the following verse, "Please allow me to kiss my father and my mother, and I will go after you." And the following verse states, "And he followed Elijah and ministered to him." And as soon as Elisha realized that he was to become a prophet, he took leave of his family. And the story is told of an ascetic who went to a certain country to teach its inhabitants about the correct way to serve God. And he found that they were all wearing the same colored clothing and ornaments, and their grave sites were next to the doors of their homes. Whoa. And he did not see any women amongst them. And when he asked him about this, he replied, "Well, the reason why we all wear the same colored clothing is that it shouldn't be distinguishable between rich and poor, and so that the rich won't end up arrogant and boastful about his wealth, and the poor won't despise himself, and he should think of his life, and he should think of his life on this earth in the same manner as when he will be underneath it after his passing." It is said about one of the kings that he would mingle amongst his servants and could not be identified amongst them. Y'all know that show is called Undercover Boss. Because he conducted himself humbly in regard to the clothes and ornaments that he wore. So a note about a poor person would think of his life on earth as in the same manner as if he's dead. That is, just as death, there is no difference. Just as in death, there's no difference between the rich and the poor, and everyone is dressed in the same shrouds. Death shrouds. So do we live in life. Alternatively, this is a continuation of the poor man shall not be disgraced in his own eyes because of the rich, which will then cause the poor person to feel that death is preferable to life. Now, the part where it says in regards to clothes and ornaments that he wore, the king. He made himself indistinguishable in his clothes, which helped him with his humility. However, when in public, he made sure to act in a kingly manner, as the Torah demands, because his subjects were supposed to feel awe toward the king. Okay. So as to the reason why we place our grave sites next to the doors of our houses, it's in order that we should take rebuke from it by being ready for death and to prepare for ourselves the provisions that will bring us to the place of rest. So having their grave sites in constant sight served as a reminder of death and how they must prepare themselves for the world to come through learning Torah and observing the mitzvot. So the provisions refer to spiritual provisions, which are the study of Torah and the fulfillment of the commandments. In the words of the Talmud, a person should repent one day before his death. You get that in Pirkei Avot, chapter 2, verse 11, Mishnah 11. And since no one knows the day he will die, he must be in a constant state of repentance. Reminding them, the part where it says reminding them how they must prepare themselves for the world to come, it means that this will cause them to ponder the possible imminence of death and the frailty of man. Okay, one more part here. So that which you noticed, going back to the townsmen, that which you notice about that we separate ourselves from our wives and children, you should know that we designated a city for them nearby. And when one of us needs something from them, he goes to them and takes care of his needs. Then he returns to us. We did this because we saw the stress, much loss, grief, and exertion and toil that will come to us as a result of being in proximity to them, and the relief from all of this due to our distance from them. So it enables us to be free to choose to engage in matters of the world to come, and to detest the matters of the world. Their words found favor in the eyes of the ascetic who had visited them, and he praised them for their practices. And although it is, of course, unfortunate not to have a family, a person should comfort himself with the fact that from a certain perspective, he has it easier, both in the material and the spiritual. So just a note on that we separate ourselves from our wives and children. The Sefaria explains that this type of service is not constant. There's a place for this type of divine service when a person is immersed or osek in prayer and Torah study. At such time, he should not be disturbed at all by family. He should be dedicated to God. Then there's times when the commandment is clearly to involve the family, such as joy on a festival, or where there's a verse that explicitly commands, and you shall be joyous in your festivals and your sons and your daughters. At these times, he clearly should not be separated from his family. Rather, he must include his family in his divine service. And the part where it says he should avoid doing anything that will cause them harm, meaning he should avoid... Oh, no. This is the next section. Yeah. Right? Because we didn't do that part. Oh, yeah, no. I'm sorry. And he should avoid doing anything that will cause them harm. The part where it says, oh, actually, no. That is the next part. That is the next part. I'm sorry. So we're done with that one. I see. The notes kind of like came together on me. So that is dealing with being alone. I hope that you could see the wisdom there, that you have an opportunity. Don't look at it as I lack, but don't look at it as I lack something. Look at it as an opportunity to do more with the time that you have. Get this relationship going, and you will get the fruits thereof, and it will extend to your life. So hope you see it like that. Stay tuned for the next one. Is going to be dealing with family and friends. Remember, these are all to get you through the holidays. Some Mussar to get us through. We can do it, and there is a prescribed way to do it by the Jewish people. So join me for next time.